All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. After Sound here, bringing you Splinterlands content every single day. And today, I am joined by Max Power from the Archmage bot token project. What do you guys want to call it? First of all, Max Power, I'm sorry. Thanks for being here. If you want to just introduce yourself a little bit and then answer that silly question I started this off with.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, happy to be here. I think this is actually my first time showing up in this space. I do a lot of like webinars and stuff in my normal day job life, but this is my first time I think showing up on camera in the crypto space. So it's kind of a fun experience. But so my role at Archmage, I basically help them with marketing and help get the message out and do a lot of communication. I helped design the websites and a lot of the content that we put out in terms of articles and some of the videos and stuff. I've helped to create a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it. That's kind of what I do. I've been around with the project since pretty much the very beginning. I didn't actually do any of the coding or creating, but I've been connected to the founders since the very beginning. I think I'm actually the first person who got to have their account be run by the Archmage
cool.
service. So as a project as a whole, to answer your question, we've sort of left it somewhat vague on purpose. That the website is archmage.app. It's not Archmage Splinterlands bot.app or Archmage Splinterlands bot.com or something, right? It's somewhat vague because the idea long term is that the project is sort of geared around this wider swath of what can we do to enable Splinterlands players to better leverage their assets, to be able to play the game at a better level, at a different level, and really find all those ways that using some of the dev experience that our team has, that we could really equip Splinterlands players to just have a better experience to fully leverage their assets. So that's kind of the idea. Our first project on that front is our Splinterlands battle bot. So yeah, that's kind of lay of the land there.
Very cool. Okay, so if we can maybe just start all the way at the beginning, because I was surprised to see when going through like the roadmap and the white paper that this project has actually kind of been in the works for a while. I mean, I think I saw dates going back as far back as February. So can you just briefly walk me in the audience through like when was the inception of this? It sounds like you were there around the beginning or maybe right at the beginning of it, and how like that development has kind of led to now, because things are starting to get interesting now. And as somebody who has had a chance to try the bot, and I'll give my experience in a little bit, but I see what you guys are doing is something that's going to be very, very influential within the Splinterlands space moving forward. So just curious to get the full origin story from your perspective.
Yeah, sure. So I could speak to what I have experienced on my side. There some of the story that I haven't even really talked to the developers about to fully know what their experience was before outside involvement. Makes sense. Going back a while, I got started in this game March, I think 2021 is when I bought in. I don't think I even started playing in March. I think I started playing in April. But that's when I got involved in the game. Pretty quickly after that, I started looking at ways that it could be botted. I had seen articles around it. I had heard information about how that could happen. Around that time, I found an article on Hive from Solo Miner, I think is who I found it from. But he had talked about setting up the bot using some free code that was available on GitHub. And so I started the path of figuring out how I could run a bot that way. I tinkered around with it, figured it out a little bit. It worked. It wasn't great, but when I wasn't able to play, I was able to leverage that in order to at least have my account doing something, right? Well, one of my guildmates, Almighty Melon, was also interested in the process as well. So he and I started to playing around with that a little bit, and he got it working for himself too. And so we're kind of collaborating a little bit. We actually collaborated with a number of people in the space who were just sort of trying to figure out how to make bots work and do that. Well, it ended up that I got really busy. I having twins about 8 months ago, actually.
Congrats.
And
How's the
so my
sleep been?
yeah, oh, non-existent, non-existent. But so yeah, so about 8 months ago, like my time available just went out the window. Period.
Mhm.
I at the time I wasn't even able to run, run the bot on my computer. I didn't have the time to keep it up and running to figure out the issues and all that. Like
Mhm.
the way that it was before, I just wasn't even able to mess with it. But around that same time, Melon and a couple of the other the other devs from our guild got together and started working on really building out a bot service that was a lot better than anything that was available. And so what that involved was actually uh, really throwing out everything that we were using at the time that we had looked at that was available. The entire thing was written from scratch. A lot of that work was done by Proto to figure out how to rewrite that and how to develop our current system. And so before we even launched our alpha and the availability for people to buy into the service and getting access through that, we were actually running the bots for ourselves, testing it, seeing how it performed on our own accounts for at
Mhm.
least a month or two, maybe more than that, just making sure that it worked. Then we put together the work of how we could actually distribute that to players in general. And that's where kind of the magical idea came that I think a lot of people are pretty excited about for how we've done this, all based around that we have a crypto token in order to actually gain access to the bot.
Yeah.
And it provides some really cool features that both help protect the people playing the bot, playing with the bot service, as well as helps to make sure that we as a project can scale up reliably. So have you read much about kind of how our token system works?
Well, I mean, I read the white paper in terms of like the distribution. So you essentially have three tokens as of now, right? The alpha, beta, and then the Archmage pass is what's being, or access pass, I think, is what's being sent out now.
Right, exactly. And so what's cool is that the alpha and beta are were both designed so that we could onboard users where from the go, we knew that we could onboard users in a way that we like our servers could handle, basically, that we could help that many people at that time. And as we were
Mhm.
developing features, we started rolling into new mode. So we started with the alpha. We actually a lot of people are going to kick themselves. We never even sold out of the alpha, right? We moved on to the beta at the time that we said we were going to, but we didn't sell out of the alpha. So there's still
Mhm.
alphas that are available for promotional stuff that we use occasionally as well. But we moved into the beta. The beta took a lot longer than we were expecting, but really the only reason we moved on from the beta is because right toward the end of it, I think we ultimately took like 3 months in the beta.
Mhm.
We sold out of every beta, so there aren't any more beta tokens available from the company. All of them have been distributed to users. People bought them at $10 a piece, and now I think they're selling at what is it, 120 or something like
100
that a
something.
piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the market. So they're all available on Hiven for people to trade freely. But what's cool is that makes it so that as a project, we only make available the amount of tokens that we feel like as a project we can reasonably service, right? Like that we can actually
Mhm.
uh, onboard into the system, use our servers, and we could do it in a way that's reliable. So we're able to control the flow of how many users we can service to make sure that the service stays working well,
Okay.
while at the same time giving people the ability where if they ever if they're not using their bot, if they if they're bouncing out of Splinterlands in general, we actually cannot prevent somebody from selling their token and giving that access to somebody else, right? So
Mhm.
they're able to freely exit out of the system without us having to give the go ahead, right? So we were very focused right off the get go, trying to bring in some of the cool things about the crypto, world into how we're doing this, where
Yeah.
there's actually a lot of power and control and ownership by the token holders in order to do what's best for them without having to get the go ahead from the project, which is part of what's cool about I think what we're up to. It's not there's some centralization, but there's some decentralization as well.
No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you're putting it in the hands of the users, and they get to decide whether or not whatever value it's bringing to them is
Right.
worth it, or if they want to, as we were talking about, it's like 10 or 11 or 12x at this point in terms of
Right.
like the value, right? If somebody wants to get that kind of return by selling it.
Right.
So it's a fascinating thing to me because I love the and I'd love for you to touch upon this, but the sustainability of it, because from what I'm gathering
Right.
from your recent comments is it's the sustainability for the team, but it also sounds like you guys are being very thoughtful about the economy of the game. Now, I just want to be very clear here that the word bot gets thrown out a lot, and I think
Right.
there's a very like strong connotation towards it one way or another. The thing is,
Right.
to me, I look at the Archmage bot, right, and we're going to use that word as more like it's not the bot that I think people get really upset about in terms of like the bot farms, right? Where
Right.
you have this massive scaling out of accounts that at a point we're using ghost cards. This is really just meant to be a bot for your account to kind of and actually Darkest Night, I'm going to give him the credit for this. I believe what he said is like it's like an auto battler for your account, right? Like an auto
Right.
player for your account. And
Right.
if you could just touch upon like the sustainability of this, as obviously you and I'm sure the people who are involved with this, the team, you guys are very much invested in the Splinterlands ecosystem now. So the last thing you'd want to do is crash that, right? Crash the golden
Right.
goose at this point.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like honestly, the uh, uh, the impetus for why this bot was created, Proto describes it largely as he was stuck in bronze and figured that a bot could help him get out if he coded it right. Right. Like he's a he's a dev gamer. Right. So he was like, I can code something that can play this thing better than I can. So I could finally escape from bronze. Uh,
We've
yeah.
all
So
been there.
right. Absolutely. But yeah, so it's incredibly important that we're doing things in a way that are ultimately good for for the Splinterlands ecosystem, right? So some of the things that hold true to that, part of the reason why we even felt remotely confident in launching a service that people could get access to is because the Splinterlands team has made it clear time after time after time that they are not interested in policing bots in the sense of just throwing the ban hammer down, right? And so first and foremost, I think it's important to understand like why the Splinterlands team is taking that approach, and I think as gamers in general, knowing that landscape, because if what you want is you want a game that you never have any fear that you're competing against a bot, that you're playing against real players 100% of the time, I think Splinterlands just isn't the right game for you. Right, like
Mhm.
that's not the route that the team is going, and some of the reasons why are because of some of this crypto ethos of saying we don't want to be a centralized authority that's dictating who gets to play and who doesn't. We want it to be able to be we want to be able to do that, and in that case, it's almost guaranteed that there's going to be some level of bot play that's happening just because you can't get rid of it.
Mhm.
And so I think what's interesting is that people come into this with a little bit of an traditional gaming mentality, where any game that you play, when it is exclusively for fun, especially, and there isn't like this economy attached to it, it does. It feels weird that you have people using like auto aimers and stuff in order to win tournaments and in order to do that kind of thing. And so there's a
Mhm.
little bit of like this paradigm shift that I think people also need to make when they understand kind of how bots fit into the the ecosystem of Splinterlands, and that they're going to be expected. And so ultimately, what we try to do is we try to operate in a way that's in the same vein as what the Splinterlands team has already made clear, which is how
Mhm.
can we set up a service is ultimately going to equip the average player to fully leverage their account as much as possible so that they can still play for fun when they want to, right? Like we all enjoy that as well, right? It's not about not
Mhm.
ever playing, but also not have to kind of have that nagging thing in the back of your mind. It was like, it's like I got family commitments all day today. I can't play, which means I'm not going to be leveraging my account, and I'm missing out on rewards that I could have gotten if I was able to play, right?
Yep.
And so being able to provide the tools for people to do that with some requirements in place to really mitigate against some of the the bot farm behavior. So just like Airland has put into place a requirement, basically reduced earnings if you don't own the cards, we have a similar requirement on our end, right? You have to have at least 5,000 CP in
Mhm.
order to even use the bot, right? And that could be
Yep.
owned, rented, or delegated, but you have to have invested in the Splinterland system in order to even be able to use. Honestly, for most people, that 5,000 is just it's not necessarily going to be enough to really maximize the rewards. So
True.
it's our lowest level deterrent, so that the average player who gets in and maybe finds out about Archmage and what we're up to, they still feel like, oh, I could use it with my account and not need to invest hundreds in order to leverage this, but still be able to get in, right? Some of the same sort of thinking for why like the Splinterlands team isn't removing a ton of rewards from bronze, even though that might make an impact on bots, if that makes sense. That you still want to protect that new user experience, and
yeah,
we ultimately do that, if that makes sense. I forget what my point was there, but does that make sense?
It does. No, I was asking to go into like the sustainability of it from the team's viewpoint. I'm sorry, like the Splinterlands team viewpoint, and I think you nailed that.
Right. Yeah, and I think what was the other point to make? Oh, honestly, the whole token system and how we do that itself in order to get access, right? We don't have people that can buy in with 10,000 bots, right? Because we don't make 10,000 tokens available, right? And it takes one token per account in order to run our service, right? So it's really geared toward somebody who wants to run a lot of these. They're also going to have to invest a lot in order to do that, which we found tends to also mean that they are very invested in the game as well, right? It's not a really low ticket entry. It's a decent enough chunk that they also are often spending the thousands if they want to get a lot of stuff going in order to do that. And even with that, right now we can't on-road people that want to do 1,000 accounts, because we're literally only releasing 50 tokens each week at this point.
Now, is this, so if we can move on to the release strategy here, is this 50 tokens per week? That goes on for how long?
So
or is that indefinite?
We're in the midst of what we're calling a pre-launch sale. So initially, if you read in the white paper, our plan was, we roll out the alpha, we test the basic features, we move into the beta to start developing some more of the advanced features. We did that. The goal had initially been that by the end of the beta, we would roll out our rewards fee, our rewards fee system, right? So long term, the Archmage service is not designed to make its money or be sustainable off the token sales. That's mostly designed to be a limiting factor to make there be some skin in the game if you're going to use the bot, right?
Sure.
And most value of those tokens ends up going to the users, on the secondary market as people leverage them, etc. And so where the Archmage project was going to be, getting revenue from was largely going to be from earning a percentage of the rewards that we help you get, right? So when we were to initially do our main launch was going to be when we had that system ready. Well, during the beta, we've just really focused on keeping the bot running great, dealing with some of the changes that Splinterlands has come out with, making sure that everything's running effectively. And none of our users have complained that we haven't rolled out the fee system. Everyone's happy to keep using the service with no extra fees. And so, but we wanted to make sure that we rewarded our early adopters and didn't roll out a token that made it eventually feel like, they could buy in right now and still have no fees. And yet, like, we bought in kind of under the expectation that this is some of the unique value that we were getting, if that makes sense. Essentially that idea. And so we wanted to roll it out in a way that still protected the value of those early adopters, rewarded them for having adopted early, but still give an on-ramp for people to get it. We're developing the fee system, right? And so that's where the pre-sale launch came into play, right? So we priced the token higher than we had before. We had initially been planning on pricing it at $10. During the pre-sale, it's priced at $25 to give it a little bit of a higher ticket price. We're going to be increasing the cost in general, even at the main launch, higher than the $10 regardless. We're just based on what we're seeing, we figured we needed to do that either way. So we increased the cost in order to reward the early adopters. All the early adopters, when they first were sold at $10. So now getting in period cost first people in, right? But the other thing is that we are taking a portion of those sales and that's actually being redistributed back to the early adopters as well through some airdrops that we're doing in promotions,
Cool.
where a
Okay.
portion of all the funds are getting there's a raffle that's being done. Every alpha you hold is worth 2 entries, every beta you hold is worth 1, and we're basically putting together some cool prizes and airdropping those on the people who win them, and then we'll be doing a bigger distribution at the end. But so that's one of the ways that we wanted to reward the early adopters. And then the other thing was we sold out of the beta so quickly, and right around then is when everybody started talking about the service, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's part of why we sold out, is because we were starting to get attention then. So we knew that we had a bunch of people that really just wanted to use the service, right? They saw the value in it. They have the same woes that we have in terms of being able to leverage it and get the value out of it.
Yep.
And so really to that point, we're like, okay, what can we do where we could start getting people in? And admittedly, like, we're not making a ton of money off of this yet, right? Like, because we don't have that reward fee system built in. That's really where the money is going to come into play in terms of what keeps the project sustainable long term.
Yep.
So it's like, how can we on-road users keep the early adopters happy, and kind of make it work for everybody? And that's where the pre-sale launch system came into play. So it's an 8-week launch where every week we are releasing 50 tokens each week, and we've already done our first launch. Our next one is coming up in just a day from when we're recording this. I don't know when it'll be released, but
well, I have I can share a screen real quick. This is the pre-launch screen here.
Yeah, so we've partnered with the Splinterlands Exchange, Splex.g. They used to be Splinterlands.rentals. They have the rental golem. If you guys are listening and you're familiar with that, that's who we partnered with. And they help to make the system for selling the tokens really easy. Makes the onboarding experience really easy. So we gave them an exclusive partnership to be able to do this, partly because what they're doing with rentals actually fits really well with what we're doing with battles, right? They go together really well. A lot of people who are automating the rentals are also interested in, as rental prices have gone down, being able to automate their play as well, right? So being able to leverage both sides of that. Anyway, so yeah, for the next at this point, 7 more weeks from this. We've already done the first week. We've got 7 more weeks of the pre-sale. We'll be releasing 50 tokens a week. Each week, we are also doing those airdrop rewards to the early adopters, like I just described. And then after the end of the pre-sale, we will really, we're gonna go back to the board a little, hoping to have the rewards fee system done by that time. If we don't, we'll reassess to see if we could keep onboarding users or not. But really, it's up in the air exactly what that looked like, because what we're focused on dialing in that rewards fee system so that we can sustainably launch, to make sure that the project can stay up and running and effectively have the funds that it needs to keep going. And so that's kind of where that comes into play. Now, when we ultimately get into the main launch, it's likely that we will never just be an open free-for-all tokens for sale, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It'll always be some limited quantity that we release based on what we believe we can handle in terms of server resources and all of that. So I don't know if it'll quite as crazy as it is right now, where we have hundreds of users competing to get 50 tokens. I don't know if it'll always be that crazy, but it should hopefully ease up over time, and we'll be able to play it by ear when we get there. But to make it clear, at least, it's never the plan to just drop like 1 million tokens on the market and have everybody be able to get as many as they want.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense. I mean, I had read the kind of 8-week plan that you guys have, but I wasn't sure what comes after that.
Right.
Now, what's interesting that you mentioned, and if you don't mind, I'm just going to jump into kind of my experience with it so far.
Sure.
So I just want to say that, I don't have any botting experience before this, and I didn't even buy the token. I'd seen another content creator's video about it, and then a friend of mine or guildmate of mine bought the token and then immediately sent it to me, and I was like, why? And he's like, well, just try it, and then you can like do content on it or whatever. I'm just like, okay. Nice. I'm like, I don't even know how to like set up this bot. I've never done it. Like, I'm not technical, right? I'm a musician, so this is not anything
right.
that comes in. I have to say though, setting it up was a breeze. Now I'm already set up with the Splex things for rentals, so you know I don't know what it's like setting it up outside of that platform, but it was just a couple clicks of a button. It recognized the token right away. I was able to kind of set the parameters that I wanted the bot to run, and this thing was winning more games than I could probably. there's a
That's
there's a,
that's my experience too. It wins more than me.
so I want to share this story specifically because I had a life quest that day and I was letting the bot run and it earned me a couple chests and I was like, oh, this is impressive because normally I would have re-rolled a life quest. But as you were saying, right, I wanted to come in and just play a game for fun, right? Like I had some free time, so I'm like, let me hit the battle button and I'm going to start playing. Now I didn't turn the bot off, but I was just going to come in and play. So here I go in and it, whatever the rule set is, I'm just like, all right, well, my favorite splinter is water. This seems like a good water team. So I start putting together my team. And before I'm done, the bot intercepts me and auto submits a team. It submits a life team and it crushes it. So that was when I was just like, you know what? Screw you, bot. That's fine. I'm going to walk away and I'm just going to let you do your thing because you clearly proved to me that you know this game way better than I do. Now, my big takeaway from this whole thing, and I want to kind of frame it in this way because I think what Archmage represents isn't like a bot service, even though I know that's what you're calling it. But the way that I'm viewing it is almost like an alternative to renting, because the way that I'm thinking about it now, at least after my couple days experience, is okay. Well, now I have the option, like assuming that I'm able to get a token in the future, I have the option to either rent out my cards and get some passive income from that, or I can let the bot use my deck for me if I want to be earning rewards cards and things. And I think people are going to try to make a decision one way or another based on where the economics of that lie. But kind of the thing that makes me lean towards the bot is because I do like playing and I want to be involved in guild brawls and tournaments. And when I have the bot running, I don't have to worry about, oh, when are my cards coming back from rental, and time all of that so that I can keep playing whenever I want to while still getting the most out of my deck. You know what I'm saying? So it's a nice kind of like at least alternative for me where I can see, should I do A or should I do B? But there's definitely advantages, I feel like, and maybe some disadvantages, but I haven't come across them yet. But well, the ECR, sure, it would be like a disadvantage if I want to, if I ever want to have a replenished ECR. But either way, it's, each side has their pros and cons. And I'm looking at it now as not like oh, I'm going to bot my account and this is passive income. It's really just an alternative to renting. And I think a really creative and a really smart alternative to renting because it's better than me. It makes me look good.
Yeah, right. One of the ways I've liked talk about this as well. Have you seen the movie Moneyball? Are you familiar with like the premise of that movie?
Moneyball? Yeah, I have.
Okay, so in that movie, one of the things that happens, you have Brad Pitt's character, who's like the general manager of the Oakland Athletics, and the basic storyline of the movie is that Brad Pitt partners up with what's the other guy's name? I forget his name.
Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill. So Jonah Hill's character comes in like with this theory about like, hey, everybody's choosing their baseball players kind of in the wrong way, right? If you choose them by on-base percentage rather than this, then you can actually find some really great deals on players and ultimately get a better team for your dollar, and really becomes like a money game, right? And so that's where the Moneyball concept. Well, the way that I like having seen that movie, the way that running a bot sort of unlocks for you is generally when you're playing Splinterlands, you're simultaneously playing the role of the general manager who's choosing what players to buy, how to buy them, how to acquire them at the right prices, right? Are you buying packs? Are you buying off the market? Are you using bids? Are you renting? That's like general manager kind of role, right? But then you have the actual coach, right? The coach, and in the movie, you kind of see this where the coach actually made the decision of put on the field at that time, who is going to play, right? And it kind of screwed with Brad Pitt's plans in the movie at that point, right? Anyway, so normally when you're playing Splinterlands, you're playing the general manager role, but you're also playing the coach role, where you're using who to field, when to field, and there's a different game, a different strategy there, obviously. What's cool about running the bot is that it's not like you're not still playing the game. It's just that Archmage becomes your coach. They become your main coach. They're fielding the players for you, but you're still playing the game of who are the players that I need. How many of them do I need? Where should I distribute them? How should I acquire them? Right. And so for me, I mentioned 8 months ago I had twins. At that point, I don't remember if I mentioned that while we were recording or not, but 8 months ago I had twins. If I didn't mention it while we were recording, and so after that point, my time was basically zero. Right. So normally for me, my roadmap with games is that I play them for a while. I get really interested in the ideas and the strategy and the tactics, but inevitably I lose interest over time because either timing just doesn't work out, or like I can't stay interested for long enough. This is one of the few games for me that not only have I stayed interested this whole time, when really I had every incentive not to because I stopped having time, right? I've stayed interested, but I've also continued to increase my investment, where normally for any other game that I've played, that's not the case, right? I played Hearthstone. I loved Hearthstone. It was awesome. I put a little bit of money into it, played it, enjoyed it. I haven't touched it like pretty much since I put a little bit of money into it, right? And then now with Splinterlands, though, because especially by running a bot and not just renting, I am still interested in what is the meta of the game. What are the best strategies? What are the cards that I need? What are the ways to optimize? So I am staying interested in this game for longer, increasing my investment, staying involved drastically longer than I normally would have, because the component that's normally necessary to like keep it going and working for me is taken care of, right? I don't have to constantly play in order to stay involved in this world, in this system, and be really connected to it. Whereas with rentals really are kind of like you could set it and forget it, right? You like there is some level of, sure, you can acquire more of the right cards, but once you acquire them, you use a service like Splex and and like it's just taken care of for you, right? You don't necessarily have to pay attention a ton. But with running a bot, there's still like, I'm still interested in hopping on the town halls. I'm still interested in reading articles about what's working and why. And so in the time that I have available, I'm still very connected to the game. And yeah, when I get more time, when I have more time available again, when my time isn't so strapped with raising twins, I'm sure I am a lot more likely to actually come in and play more manual, right? Because I'm still connected, I'm still here. Whereas otherwise, I would either have sold my assets or just have them sit there lying dormant while I'm doing nothing, and I may never come back to them. And so I think like there's an aspect of what botting for the average person can do that a lot of people miss, because they're so focused on kind of like that traditional, like, oh, well, if you're botting, you're not really playing. Well, it's like that's not exactly the case, because there's an economy aspect to this too, and you're playing a different game at the same time. Does that make sense?
No, 100%. And actually, I mean, so there's a couple things that I want to dissect. The first thing is I love the Moneyball analogy, because I think the way that you hit that was spot on. I hadn't thought about it in that way. Now, I'm not a big fan of baseball, but I'm a big fan of just sports management in general. Right? I'm more of a football guy. But what you said resonates so strongly within me, because the person who had lent me the golem, sorry, not the golem, the Archmage bot, was watching the battles that the bot was doing. And every time they would see the bot play a card of mine that maybe wasn't maxed out or wasn't leveled up, they would say, that's an interesting strategy. I wonder if it would have won if you had such and such card at level 5 or level 6, whatever. And then he'd go out and buy the card. Right. So that's him playing the general manager role after seeing the coach in action and what the coach can do with the players. So exactly. that analogy really, really stuck with me there. In terms of like the timing though, that you're saying now, like what, or not the time, the limited time that you have, what makes Splinterlands so interesting for me. And I think one of the reasons that I came and stuck around the game, because you look at the game, and I say this with all love, like, it's a very simple game, right? It's an auto battler. It's not gonna, it's addictive, but it's not like game changing. It's not, like gonna blow your mind in any way. I look at it, it's like, it's a combination of like Magic the Gathering and poker is the best analogy that I can give. And both of those games are cool, and you combine them and it's cool, but it's not like you're gonna be in some VR experience. Not yet, but it's not like you're gonna have your mind blown. It's just a cool thing. What makes Splinterlands so great though is that there's this meta on top of that, right? There's this game economy that exists in which you can kind of interact with this game in several different ways that have zero to do with playing. Now, the Archmage bot kind of takes two of those and kind of blends it together, where it's just like, well, you can be the general manager and still follow along as you're doing with the game meta while not actually playing. playing. You know what I mean? And not
Right.
having to worry about the day-to-day grind of that. You get to be the general manager. You don't have to show up to 2-a-days. You don't have to show up to the training camp, and you can just, you know, sign the big deals, bring the big boys in to win the tournaments, and there you go.
Exactly. And yeah, I mean, like the strategy that you described of like how to acquire the right cards and whatnot, that's exactly what I'm doing. Like I have my accounts, I have like level 1s across the board assigned of the cards that it has available for just about everything that I can. And then what I'm doing is I'm going into Peak Monsters. I'm looking at what was played in the last 24 hours, and I'm like, okay, it wants to play this. It would probably do better if it was leveled up. That's a card that I need to target. So
It's a good
that
way
I
to
know what
approach
to
it.
acquire.
Oh, so and feel free to answer this however you like, or not. But I'm just curious, and this might be more of like a question for the developers. But I'm just curious how the thinking goes into like the strategy around development. Again, this is such a complex. I'm sure the answer is so complex in and of itself. But you know, as I'm assuming the team has been around, at least you've been around for a year. I'm sure they've been around for a year plus as well. Like how do they view this? And I'm sure they have to be constantly evolving with every new card that comes out, whether it's a reward card or a Rift Watchers or small pack. You know what I mean? Like, is this something that takes up a lot of their time? Is this something that's fully automated? Are they getting a lot of data from games? Like how are they thinking about this? And like I said, feel free to share what you can share. I don't want to get anybody in trouble here.
Yeah. So at a basic level, I mean, there's a couple of things that I see, right? Because I'm kind of like a fly on the wall when it comes to the dev stuff. I know enough about technical things that I'm not completely in the dark when they start talking more the technical side of things. And yet I don't know how to do or create nearly any of it myself, if that makes sense. So
Sure.
I can fiddle with things and I understand the language, and yet I'm not able to like write it myself. And so the things that, you know, hear them talking about in how they approach the development, you know, first and foremost, every single one of us that's involved in this project is a player, is somebody who got into the game for the fun of the game, right? And that's where it comes from, right? It's not it isn't just some opportunity, and it is always a level of like, okay, what can we do to like get more wins, because of the ego drive of we want to make sure this thing is winning in the game of Splinterlands, right? Like so there's always that stuff where you know, rethinking how to prioritize what hands are played, how to change the weightings, all. And so part of the bot so well is because our dev team, and you know, Proto especially, to his credit, like he understands this game better than many people that I've seen look at it, right? And so he's able to kind of code his thoughts into how to do it. And that's where a lot of time goes. A lot of time goes to make sure it functions, but then also like all those other mechanics as well, where it's not just you know, you understand like the way that the reward economy of this works. So it's not just getting wins, but it's also being able to prioritize getting wins with owned cards versus starter cards, being able to prioritize wins in your focus rather than outside of your focus, being able to understand is it worth going after wins when you're already capped at the max rating for your league. And so by getting more wins, it's like there might be an ego thing of getting more rating, but it doesn't actually help you, you know, earn more rewards or leverage the game further at that point. Does that make sense? So there's a lot of thought that goes into that. I'd say there's a lot of effort that goes into Splinterlands just made a change. What do we need to do to make sure that this thing keeps functioning? But luckily, for the most part, a lot of the changes that come from the Splinterlands team, whether it's new cards or new abilities or any of that, a lot of our process is at least currently based on historical data. So we kind of see what works based on the field of what's already working, and are able to leverage it that way. There's a little bit of or maybe a lot of it of you know, sort of massaging and how that information is determined, where that data is being grabbed from, in order to sort of get that special mix that makes Archmage work so well. But at a basic level, it's a lot of historical data that's feeding into our algorithm to say, you know, what ultimately is the right hand to play for this rule set with your cards. And so that's where a lot of time goes, is there, making sure that keeps working. And then the other thing that a decent amount of the time goes to is just the the basic technical details of like, how do we code this in a way that it scales users up effectively on minimal server architecture and all of that kind of stuff that I only basically understand. But that's kind of the bucket. It's the fun stuff that's just maximizing the wins because the team wants it to be the most winningest thing ever. There's the fixing the changes from sleds that might break how we've designed it or whatnot. And then finally, there's the like the server architecture and just the boring stuff about scaling and how many users we can compare the resource it takes, all that.
Fair enough. Okay, good to know. So in that context, and maybe we can kind of pivot here before we close out. I would actually love to get your thoughts, because and for people who might be watching this out of the context of time, we just had, in case you're watching this like in like a couple of months, we just had a major announcement from the Splinterlands team, followed by a town hall earlier today, talking about some big updates that are coming. So whether that's the new focuses that will be coming in, there's also talk about SPS replacing DEC, which I think is one of the bigger ones. I'm sure the internal group message for you guys since last night has probably been on fire. I'm just curious, what are some of the big things that are on your radar looking ahead, and like, okay, well, maybe we should start to get ahead of this or start thinking about it in a way, because this is going to impact our service, our, and everything that we're trying to do.
Right. So luckily, for sake of our players, for sake of our users, the changes don't really change a ton of what the user experience is. Good, right? So the bot should keep functioning. It should be able to still get wins. One of the things that the changes do require, if we really want to be able to help users maximize the returns from their focus chests, is we need to think through the logic of that, right? Because it's changed it from a from an on-off, pass-fail, black-white sort of scenario with how focuses worked before and how the rewards worked from that, to a little bit more of a granular scale where each card actually impacts the rewards that you're ultimately going to, or at least our share is going to get from playing that hand. And so that does change like how our focus aggression and our focus algorithm will have to work. I don't know exactly what the team's going to come up with to deal with that and to navigate that. But that's one of the discussions for sure, is dealing with that. The fact that DEC is moving to SPS on the ranked rewards. That changes at least how we had initially envisioned the reward system, was that a lot of our planning was going to be thought through in DEC, right? By moving to SPS, that definitely makes it that we're likely going to be switching how we think through how the rewards fees are factored. It'll still, at a basic level, it'll still always be true to what we put in the white paper, which is if you use the Archmage battle bot, we want to make sure that you are only ever paying a percentage of what you earn to the service, and you make more than you ever spend to run the service, right? That's the idea. That's kind of the North Star of the principle there. But how we factor that, that might change from before. It was just very directly based on like the DEC values,
earnings,
more of it might be now go into more of an actual value rather than just the crypto value. So we'll have to see. I'm not sure. The team hasn't fully decided. I mean, the news is still fairly new for us in terms of what actually is going to happen. But I think it impacts things. For the most part, it doesn't change much about what's going on. The good news is, we're already in the works of figuring out how we're going to do the rewards fees. So like, if it was going to happen, I'm glad it happened now rather than happening like right after we launched the reward fee system. But yeah, that's so definitely a couple of factors there for us to think through. I think overall, like we love when Wonderland's team comes up with more ways to say, how do we make sure that we're most rewarding the people who are most invested in this game, whether with their time or their money or their attention. We love it when that happens. That's ultimately, we understand that's best for the community as a whole. And really, we like you said, we sort of see it as an autopilot, right? Just like you know, how to put it. I mean, autopilot does a little bit more of the steering, but like if you think about like cruise control, if you got the cruise control
Yeah.
and you still got to steer, you still might need to put the brakes on it occasionally. That's kind of how we like to think about the bot.
Yeah.
In that it's not completely a set it and forget it. It's very much you know, we're paying attention to what's going on in the community, and we're enabling things to be easier and a little bit more automated, but there's still, we love that active participation as well. So I think there's a number of those changes that will help with that. So the long-term roadmap that they're describing of like like all rewards moving to based on how like how well staked you are, or some of that.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of that you got. Some
did,
of that
yeah.
may impact. Some of that might impact our model quite a bit. We'll have to see. But yeah, lots of interesting, cool stuff I think coming up.
No, definitely. So one quick question is modern and wild. Is there going to be a setting once that's implemented for you to designate the bot to play only modern or wild?
Yeah, that's a good question. So ultimately, that's definitely the case because the bot largely uses historical data in order to make its decisions. We're going to not plan to immediately be available for modern because
Okay.
as of right now, while there are technically hands that are that are modern, right, where people are only playing Untamed or Chaos, the amount of times that both hands are modern qualifying and really trying to understand if the indications amongst those hands is actually relevant to when the only hands are modern, it is not necessarily as easy to deduce as you might expect, right? So we want to make sure and say when we're saying that we think the bot will get you wins with a certain hand selection, we want that data to actually be pretty decent and really have a meaningful chance of doing a good job there. So we're confident that it'll continue to do well like it has in a wild format in that scenario. So obviously anybody who's playing modern hands can still play in wild, right? So it's like you can't play. But yeah, so we will be rolling out for sure the ability to play in both modern and wild, and yes, have a setting to be able to choose which one you'll have the bot playing in. When that's going to come, we're not exactly positive. For sake of the project and the long-term roadmap, getting that reward fee system built and dialed is going to be most important to be able to make sure that like we have the cash flow to keep servers up, to keep onboarding users and all of that. So that's where the attention is mostly right now. Which I got to be honest, I think it's kind of hard for for our developers because they love actually just keeping the thing working exactly right in terms of the gameplay itself. So it's almost like we're having to take a step back and say, all right, we got to do the adulting thing here and make sure that there's actually money to play with this stuff.
Let's make sure we can keep playing games, right?
Exactly. So that's where that is. I mean, I think you know, the dev team especially, I could tell you what, part of the reason why it's taking a little while to get the rewards fee stuff dialed is because they just love to code around the game itself, and that's where a lot of the focus keeps going back to. So we'll get through it. We'll get through getting that stuff taken care of, and we'll be back to fully focusing on just the gameplay mechanics themselves and being able to do the different leagues and all of that. So that's definitely in the long-term roadmap for sure.
Very cool. All right, well, MaxPower, I really appreciate you taking the time to kind of go through this. If I could just ask kind of two-part question as we finish this out here. One, and we already went through some of the Splinterland sides, but you kind of teased out what you know, the fact that Archmage.app is like this bot service is really just maybe the first part. What are you most looking forward to? Is there anything you can share, even if it's just like a little preview of where the team is thinking? And then two, you know, for those who are interested, just feel free to shill any links or places where people can connect with you if you're looking for that, or people can connect. And I'll make sure to put a link to the Discord in the comments. I'm sorry, the whatever it's called, the discussion below.
Perfect. Yeah. So if people want to check out what we're up to, now Archmage.app is going to be our website. That's the best place to go and get more information about everything we're up to. Links to the Discord, links to the white paper, links to like our different Hive blog posts and all that. I'm pretty sure we have the Hive blog stuff linked in there. If not, I'll need to add that. But yeah, all of that's there. So again, Archmage.app. That's the best place to get started off everything else. Right now, if you're interested in the pre-sale specifically, that's splex.gg/Archmage. That's a dedicated page that again, they're the exclusive, they're the exclusive partner for us to do this pre-sale. Just a couple more details about this that we didn't cover. The exact date and time of each of the drops each week is going to vary. Our goal is to make sure that no matter what time zone you're in, that there's a time that we're launching that it'll be a good time for you, right? So we're doing this for, we've got 8 weeks total that we're doing this. Our next one's coming up in about a day, and then we've got 6 more after that. We are still interested in community feedback. If we need to adjust things, we're willing and open to it as well. There is a lot of demand. I want to make sure that people know and understand that. If you are not ready right now to go to the page and know that you may stay up, or you may try and find the right time, you may be there, you may be at exactly the right time, you may click the button and you may still not get the token. Right? Because there's drastically more people who want these things right now than we have the ability to service effectively. So just know that that's the case. If you don't like that, and if that's not going to be an experience that you're okay with, I would recommend either waiting until after the pre-sale and waiting to acquire when we do like a main launch, or just waiting until maybe things have died down a bit more. If you don't want that experience, if you're comfortable with that, if you're like, man, I love the excitement of seeing if I could get there, seeing if I could be first in line, seeing if I can get that token, then you'll enjoy the pre-sale, and I think there's a lot of value there. But I do want to make sure people understand that we don't have a great way to get past that at the moment. So that's something that should be noted.
That's fair. So just because I was looking for it here, but just if you could share with the audience, what if they want to be prepared, what tokens do you accept as payment?
Perfect. Yeah, we should have them get some of that information on the page. I think what we might do is release a video that actually shows what the process looks like, just that so that anybody what's going to happen is when that timer gets down to 0, you refresh the page and there's a button that says like get your Archmage token, right? There's a blue button that replaces that thing. You click that and then there's a little modal pop-up is what it's called, that has all the details. And then the ability to reserve a token and then go through with Hive Keychain and pay. So you got to have Hive Keychain. You have that set on your browser, and then you're going to be paying with either DEC or SPS, valued at $25 USD. Okay, so $25 worth of DEC or SPS at the time of the purchase, and it's taken from your in-game balance. Okay, so you have to have an account that has an in-game balance, and that's where it's all going to come from. Okay, so you make sure that it's in your game, not in Hive Engine. It's got to be in your game
clarification.
account. Yep, and you're going to need your Hive Keychain, in-game balance, DEC or SPS. And it's one or the other. You can either pay in DEC or SPS. You can't pay in both, if that makes sense. So
no combinations allowed.
Both. Exactly. And then the other thing that's worth noting, in order to try and make this as fair as possible, we've limited it to 1 token per transaction. You can do as many transactions as you're able. Based on the demand that we've seen, you probably will only be able to do 1 transaction, so you're probably only going to be able to get 1 token. But if we get to a point where that demand starts to fade a little bit and people are able to get in a couple of transactions, you can get multiple tokens that way, but you have to do 1 per transaction. So that's the other key thing to note.
Good to know. All right. Anything else that you want to share before we call it a day here?
Yeah, I think the only other thing, if you have any questions, if you want more information, we're really active in our Discord. Out of all of the Discords that are around, I think we're one of the more active and communicative. We have people on our team from all over the world, so we have most time zones covered. So no matter who's listening to this or watching this, chances are we've got somebody in there and able to answer questions and clarify anything that you might be confused about. There are no dumb questions. If you don't understand something, if something doesn't make sense, we're happy to answer it. We get, like, especially with Splinterlands, there's all sorts of levels of of people coming in that may not be familiar with these crypto concepts. So
Mm-hmm.
if you have any questions, feel free, come in. We're happy to help you in whatever way we can and get you set up. We hope that everybody could get a token who wants one. Unfortunately, I think not everybody who wants one is going to be able to get one, but we hope that everybody who wants one can.
Well, I want one. I'll be there in about 24 hours or whenever this thing goes live. So, like I said, I've had a good experience with it so far. I really like what you guys are trying to put together. And it's, like I said, to me, the future of the Splinterland space, I think, could be defined like renting cards out was a huge game changer for many people. And I feel like that brought in a ton of interest in the space. And I think being able to kind of automate your account, and I don't even like the automate. I like being able to be the GM of your account, right? And have and bring a coach in. I think that is a much cooler way to look at it. So Max Power, I appreciate you taking the time once again. And yeah, everybody, thank you so much. Let us know your feedback, and if there's a lot of questions, Max Power, I may reach out to you for a potential round 2 if you're down to do it. Maybe we can even do it live.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good to me.